So the 2022 NFL Draft is now in the books, and this draft was very interesting. Obviously, the top 5 picks were all pretty much wild cards. We had no idea what was going to happen, along with a lot of other very interesting draft stories, including a lot of the quarterbacks falling very, very far in this draft. But in today's video, I'm going to be going over the biggest steals of the draft. I'm going to separate this into 2 videos. The first video is going to be the first 3 rounds, and then the next video will be rounds 4 through 7. And really quickly, I'm sorry I haven't posted in a while. I've just been busy with some other stuff, but now that the draft ended, I'm going to be putting out a lot more content, and there's probably going to be around 10 videos coming out about the draft. But my first best steal of the draft is Kyle Hamilton, who was picked number 14 by the Ravens. I had him as the best prospect in this class. When I watch his film, I see no weaknesses in this dude's game. He might be the best safety prospect ever. Obviously, I've only been grading prospects for about 3 years now, so I didn't watch the Sean Taylors, aside from highlights that I've watched because I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan, and highlights from him in the NFL. I didn't scout Sean Taylor, but ever since 2020, there is not a single safety prospect that comes close to Kyle Hamilton. I think he was easily the best prospect in this draft class, and the reason he fell had a large part to do with the 40 time. A lot of teams timed him at 4.7, which is so stupid anyway because hand times and team times are usually very inaccurate. It's not nearly as accurate as official times. I have a feeling he ran closer to the 4.5s. That, along with him being a safety, is probably the reason that he fell during this draft. I mean, safeties aren't very highly valued in the NFL, but getting a guy that is not just a safety, he can literally play every position on the defense besides defensive line. I think it's an incredible steal for me at 14, and I honestly think he's going to come into the Ravens and be their best safety on their team, and that includes Marcus Williams. Another steal from the first round, who was also picked by the Ravens, was Tyler Linderbaum at pick 25. I had him as a top 5 prospect in this class. I thought he was a blue chip prospect, the best center I've ever scouted. I had him as my number 4 prospect available. Obviously, I wouldn't have taken him in the top 10 because of how NFL teams value the position center. He doesn't really have guard or tackle flexibility. If he did, he would have gone top 5 easily, I think. But the Ravens desperately need center, and they got a guy who I think is going to be like Creed Humphrey was last year and come into the NFL NBA top 3 center in the NFL day 1. It's kind of crazy how the Ravens got 2 guys that, in my opinion, are coming into the NFL and going to be top 5 in their positions in their rookie year. And they were able to not only convert Marquise Brown into Tyler Linderbaum, but also trade down, get an extra 4th round pick, and still acquire Tyler Linderbaum. Moving on to the 2nd round now, my next biggest steal is Jaquan Brisker, picked by the Chicago Bears at number 48. I had him as my 21st best player in the draft. I thought he was really good. I really like this safety class. I had, I think, 4 or 5 safeties as first round grades. Now, Brisker was tied for my safety 2 with Lewis Cine. I think he's very good. He's going to come into this Bears team and probably be the starting strong safety from day 1. I think they probably should have prioritized receiver a little bit more, but getting Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon is going to make that secondary a lot better when that secondary was really, really bad last year. And they got Velus Jones in the 3rd round, who was a big reach in my opinion, but still, they got a receiver. And for the picks the Bears had, they overall had a very, very good draft, and I think Jaquan Brisker was the best player that they drafted. I think he's going to go into the Bears and immediately be the best safety on their team. I don't think Eddie Jackson is very good, so I could see him playing free safety, strong safety, wherever they really want to put him, but he is going to go on that team, I think, and pretty safely be their best safety. The next steal I have is George Pickens going at number 52. I had him as my 32nd ranked prospect in the draft, so he was very close, but it was a late 1st round grade for me on him, and the reason that he fell this far is because of the character. Now, it's whether or not you like the character, and Steelers usually have tended to care less about character concerns, them and the Cowboys over the years. They really just care if you're a good football player. But there are some character issues with George Pickens, which is why he fell. My main concern with this pick, though, is that I don't really see who is going to be playing in the slot on this team. I think Chase Claypool will probably do it. He's the best fit there. So I don't know if George Pickens was the best fit for this team, but it was still a very good value pick, getting a guy like this that is so talented. There's a reason he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. Getting him all the way at almost the end of the 2nd round, that's pretty crazy. And my final biggest steal of the second round, with the last pick in the second round, the Denver Broncos got Nick Binito at pick 64. I had him as my 34th ranked player in the draft. He was very close to being a late first round prospect for me, but I had him as a early second round prospect. And Nick Binito is a very good player. He's maybe the most athletic edge rusher in this class, and the NFL values athletic edge rushers. He is so fast. He kind of reminds me of an Azeez Ojulari, but better from last draft. He just has that deadly speed rush, and I think he's going to come onto the Broncos and be a starting edge for them day one. Now, obviously, the Broncos could have taken Nakobe Dean. They need linebacker, but this wasn't a bad pick. It was a really, really good pick, and Nakobe Dean had some very big injury concerns, which is why he fell so far. But I really, really like this pick for the Broncos, not only for the player, but also the team fit. I think he's a great team fit for them. But moving on to the third round, I'm going to group Desmond Ridder and Matt Corral into one. I think these two were amazing steals. Desmond Ridder went pick 74, Matt Corral went pick 94. I thought these guys were going to go at the very latest in the second round. I did not expect either of them to fall to the third round. I believe I had Ridder as my 41st ranked prospect and Corral as my 51st ranked prospect, and I don't take positional value into account there, so with quarterbacks, that means that they would probably be worth drafting in the early second round, maybe even late first round. But the reason that these guys fell is because NFL teams are just lower on these guys than I was. And Matt Corral has a couple concerns that I think are pretty BS. He struggled with alcohol abuse in college, but for the past year, he has gotten off of that. And for some reason, NFL teams are holding that against him, which I don't get because he is alcohol-free now and has been alcohol-free for the past year. But both of these teams got guys that I think could start day one for them. I would personally start Matt Corral day one for the Panthers over Sam Darnold. And getting a guy that could be your starting quarterback day one at the end of the third round is insane value to me. Same thing with Desmond Ridder. Mariota's obviously very good, but Desmond Ridder could end up starting a significant portion of games for the Falcons this season because aside from Mariota, they really don't have any other quarterbacks. And now that they drafted a quarterback, they're probably going to want to play him to get some minutes out of him and see what he can do. So I thought both of those picks were slam dunk picks for those teams who were very quarterback needy and were able to get some good quarterbacks at absolute steals in the third round. The Ravens made another really, really good draft decision, taking Travis Jones at pick 76. I believe I had him around number 50 on my big board. I thought he would have not fell past the second round and would have gone probably early to mid-second round. I thought teams were pretty high on him. But the Ravens somehow managed to snag a guy that could start for them at D-tackle day one. He is really, really good. And overall, the Ravens just had an amazing draft, stealing a bunch of players. Next guy I want to talk about is Nakobe Dean. I thought he was a top 10 prospect in this draft. I had him as my number 9 prospect. Obviously, there are injury concerns, but it seems like he is going to suit up for camp and could even play week 1, which really at that point doesn't make sense to me why he fell this far. The Eagles got both Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and A.J. Brown with only 2 first-round picks at their disposal. That is just crazy value. This Eagles team I've already talked about before, but I think they're going to be very deadly this year. They will be a top 3 seed in the NFC, and I think they're easily going to win their division. The Cowboys got worse, and the Eagles only got better this offseason. And Nakobe Dean is a big part of that. I think he is their best linebacker coming in. They really don't have a good linebacker room, so if he can start day one, it's going to be a huge help for him. This kind of reminds me of last year when JOK fell super far in the draft. I thought he was a top 15 prospect in last year's draft. He fell all the way to the end of the second round. Cleveland Browns snag him. He had a couple games that he missed his rookie year, but aside from that, he was amazing. He was really, really good in his rookie year, and I think Nakobe Dean will be much of the same. This was a great pick for the Eagles here. Next up, we have Malik Willis, who I do not understand how he fell to pick 86. The Titans got someone who I think is going to be their starter in a couple years and might be the next Russell Wilson in terms of being a quarterback drafted in the third round that is going to be amazing for 10 plus years. Malik Willis was my number 17 ranked prospect in this draft, and I thought he was going to be picked by the Steelers at pick 20. I don't understand why they took Kenny Pickett. He was my QB5. Not saying that Pickett didn't deserve to go that high, but having Pickett go 2 rounds above all the other quarterbacks was very insane to me. I think a lot of the quarterbacks picked in the third round were better than him. And that's not really slanderous to Pickett. It's just more of NFL teams for some reason not liking the other quarterbacks in this draft. But Malik Willis has insanely high potential. And you can argue all you want that, oh, he's super raw. But he's getting the chance to sit behind Ryan Tannehill for a year and learn before becoming the starting quarterback. And that is really going to help him, I think. and he could have a sort of Patrick Mahomes rise where he sits his first year. In the second year, he might be an MVP candidate, or at the very least, I think would be a top 10 quarterback. This was a slam dunk pick for the Titans. I think this and Kobe Dean were the best value picks in the draft. And then the last player in this video I'm going to talk about is Leo Chenal at pick 103. I was really hoping my Dolphins would take him, but they took Channing Tindall, which I understand, but Leo Chenal is super, super good. He is a super athletic linebacker. I had him as my number 38 ranked prospect in this draft. He was my linebacker 3. I guess NFL teams were lower on him than I was, but I really thought he would go at the very latest, like mid to late second round. I was surprised that the Patriots didn't take him with pick 29. I thought he was a very Patriots player. But yeah, he is super athletic. He's a very good linebacker. I think he's going to come into the Chiefs defense and be a starting linebacker for them day one. Obviously, they have Nick Bolton and Willie Gay, but I think he is probably day one better than all of those guys except maybe Nick Bolton. But the Chiefs got an absolutely amazing player at the end of the third round here. Great steal for them.